Good. Okay. Hey, thanks for coming, everyone. This has been at least 3 years, 2 or 3 years in the making. Rob had the idea of doing a talk about the Rippl app around the time that it was actually being used and still quite active, and it was very topical. We were all thinking about COVID, and for various reasons, probably mainly because of COVID, we didn't actually end up doing this talk. So I don't know how much it's evolved over the time since we first proposed it, but yeah, we've dusted it off, and Rob's going to give us the Rippl story in all its glory. I did want to say before Rob starts that we're running the first ever New Zealand-wide product conference in September later this year. So if you're keen to be part of a #1 experience in New Zealand, then sign up. Well, I think you can, other expressions, we're not taking, can you sign up yet, register? Do you know?
Yeah,
I think so. If you want to know more, let me know. And follow Product Aotearoa on LinkedIn, because they'll be announcing it on there. And coming up soon also is the Product Unconference, which is probably the 5th or so time that we've run an unconference, an online version of an unconference where you make the agenda yourselves collectively and you talk about topics around products. So that's coming shortly. And again, go to Product Aotearoa on LinkedIn and you'll find a registration link for that that's coming up in a few weeks' time. I should know my dates better than that. So that's also quite a good way to just connect in with the community across the country. So you'll have people from all sorts of places in New Zealand that you didn't think product people existed. And increasingly, we're finding people right across the Motu. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop talking and leave the stage to you, Rob, and looking forward to it. So thank you.
Right, so yeah, we just this presentation off. It was the 17th of August 2021 when I was due to present this last time, and 2 hours away from taking the stage, we went into lockdown level 4 for the second time. It's kind of ironic. Liam is actually to blame for getting me up here.
Good.
I told Liam about the story, and he said you've got to come here and present this. So fundamentally, this is a story from 2020. And that's 3 years ago. I find it hard to believe. I know a lot of others do too. I think COVID and lockdowns and so on kind of did something odd to our perception of time. Among other things, this is a story of how we use sort of lean product development practices to create the most downloaded app in New Zealand in just 3 weeks. But there's a whole lot more to the story. And that's why Liam O'Neill pushed me to originally present to this group on it. I know many of you will know Liam, so we can blame him. This is a flop. So first an icebreaker. I've got 3 kids, 9, 13, and 15. My middle one is Nico. And he used to get so nervous before mountain bike races that he didn't want to do them anymore. And he asked me this morning, he said, "Are you nervous about the presentation, Baba?" I said, Yeah, I'm really nervous. I've definitely got too many slides, and I'm nervous because I want to do the story justice. And he goes, and he had a bit of a cheeky grin on his face, and he said, "Are you nervous? Are you excited?" Because we used to give him a hard time when he got to the starting line. He used to get so nervous he didn't even make it to the start. We taught Nico to repeat to himself, "I'm so excited. I'm so excited, I'm so excited," in an attempt to reframe the situation. It seems silly, but boy, it works, right? So I had this little mantra, and he copes heaps better, so he's giving me shit. But this is Nico before the mountain race. He's whispering, and if you go close enough, you can actually hear him. "I'm so excited, I'm so excited." He's shitting himself, right? So I like to teach my kids and my teams, actually, that great things happen when you get outside your comfort zone. And while creating Rippl, we spent a huge amount of time well outside our comfort zone. So I'm excited. One more thing before I get started, I like to lead with the takeaways because the American movie, you kind of have to sing all the way through, but if you get it out of the way early, then you can get to the content. I'm a big believer in generosity. or karma, I guess. So generosity, it can be person to person, it can also be part of a product strategy. In a digitally enabled world in particular, I totally believe what goes around comes around. And so you've got to quote somebody, right? So the mighty Seth says that, basically, that actually think in terms of offering something to value to other people, and they will willingly connect to you. And those connections, as we know, are really important. This definitely proved the case for Rippl, and many of the people I've connected with over the years and for different help and advice. And they got behind us, and some of you actually here listening. So thanks to everybody that got behind this whole thing. Okay, so bear with me. There's 4 quick slides on paper cut because it's actually relevant in terms of providing some background about who we were at the time, the story, and it really is important context. So we'll do this quickly. This was us, Christmas before lockdown, about 30 of us, and not a care in the world, right? What's coming? PaperKite is and still fundamentally is a services company. It does 3 things. It's built its reputation in mobile app development. It does discovery and digital strategy, and it does emergency tech as well, but emerging technology. More real. But we deliberately tinker as well. So we run discipline experiments. So it's us. Clients like these, so big and small clients, but definitely a client-based services company. And as we've grown, as we've matured, we go after clients like this that make us feel good, that do social good. We like to work with these clients. I've got one slide on my background, again for context. You can see I'm not a designer, but if you, bottom left, I started as a developer and did sort of C++ stuff. Formal sort of software development life cycle, as it was called back then, for those who are as old as me. Joined a crazy startup in Germany. It was a toy shop, crazy ride. Then did consultancy, a lot of facilitation, cross-functional teams, war rooms as they were called. And then came back to Wellington and did sort of technical leadership with a mobile agency. I know a few people from my time at New Zealand Post. Moved into strategy, went to the museum, I was head of digital product and operations there, bringing ProductTank to exhibitions. Service Innovation Lab was a short stay, but very relevant to the story I'm about to tell. And I have to scroll my notes, it's been a while. In the Service Innovation Lab, we pulled basically brilliant people out of dusty government agencies and gave them space to think about their customers. And we changed the law. We did prototypes that actually changed the law, which was cool. And most relevant to this Rippl story is that we look for opportunities to partner with the private sector. And we believe the government was really good at policy and rules, but really should empower the private sector to play and to deliver services. So PaperKite was brought in to help define the next chapter in this agency. It's an agency that was known for mobile apps, but needed to bring some sort of discipline to the way they did innovation. So that's what we started. This was the context for the story, basically. So we'll go to 25th March 2020. Who knows what happened on this day? Yeah. Lockdown. And of course, it triggered another massive run on toilet paper. This was day 1 at our house, self-isolation. This was foreign, right? This was new. This was something that everybody didn't know what was going on. It's hard to imagine now, right? You think back and think if the lockdown happened again, everybody, but this was pretty foreign. We'd never seen anything like this before. Empty motorways in Auckland. I've just spent a week in Auckland. This is not the normal state of that motorway. We were lucky. Our jobs could easily continue. In PaperKite, we played dress-ups, right, to keep morale up. I took some desperate measures to keep my exercise up. You could stay within the rules if you stayed within a certain number of kilometres from your house. But it was a serious situation. Right? People were scared, man. They were confused. There were crazy pictures and stories from the globe. You don't dress up like that unless you're freaked out, right? And we were definitely being told this was serious, right? It could get out of hand. If our health services were to get overwhelmed, it could get ugly. We've got to slow the spread or face overwhelming our health services. That sounded pretty scary. And in fact, it was already ugly in Italy. I don't know how well people were tuned into the global scene at that point. We were pretty tuned in because what we were thinking about, but they were actually having to turn people away from hospitals. Imagine being in a position where you've got to turn patients away, and thousands of people were dying. And it got worse. Very few people I know knew that it did that again later on. This was just the start of something huge. This image was widely shared. It's a health worker who collapsed under the strain of hospital work. Just puts actually the essential workers at the brunt of this, right? And with many crises, it is those at the bottom of the pile that get hit hardest. This was no different. Essential workers kept working while we amused ourselves with superhero masks and with Google Meets. In March, I also had a very personal connection to the impact of COVID. My uncle was fighting cancer in the UK, and he was losing. There was no way my mother could visit him from New Zealand, and his family weren't allowed near him while he faded away in hospital. So I felt pretty driven to find a way to help out. There was also a terrible toll on businesses with hospitality and hospitality workers that were being hit really, really hard. There were fears that the cities that we love may never be the same. Some could argue they're still not back to where they should be. Some of us wrote love letters to the hospitality industry, the places they know and they love, and they prayed would still be there when they got back. Some special places in Wellington that had really taken a hit. Throughout all of this, Sir Ashley kept us calm, and kept us informed, and as the lockdown was extended into April, there seemed to be light at the end of the tunnel. Ashley told us level 2 was approaching, and everyone had a theory about what that might look like. It seemed clear that it would involve the need to record visits to venues. I suggested that maybe PaperKite could provide a content tracing solution to help hospitality and preserve privacy. And to be honest, I'd been at PaperKite just for 3 months, and I was kind of keen to try out our discipline experiment process. So this is an opportunity to test whether the new process I've just introduced, based on stuff that I've learned at Post and Papa and so on, would work at PaperKite. And of course, to identify improvements. We won't dive there, there's lots there. While I was gathering support for my idea, Johnny McKenzie, I don't know how many people know Johnny McKenzie. Johnny's a past PaperKite client. Crossboss is a widely adopted point of sale system used in the hospitality industry. This is Johnny, and he embodies generosity. Throughout what was about to kick off, he provided a deep understanding of the hospitality industry. He spent hours of his personal time helping PaperKite deal with the support strain of becoming a product company overnight. He joins a Google Meet on the Monday and he tells us he can see a train crash coming when level 2 hits and businesses are expected to content trace without any help. So that night, things kick off. Here's the link canvas. Started at 11 o'clock at night, done an hour later. Remember, there's no such thing as content tracing at this point. Certainly no such thing as a content tracing app, and details from overseas are pretty sketchy and pretty hard to come by. We hypothesized about customers and user problems, and we identified early adopters, and we had a terrible working title called Beat This Kiwis. We did a quick check of the YS section, it's my favorite section, before going any further. So as a services company, we see a lot of clients that don't pay this box in particular a lot of attention. It felt solid enough to at least nudge it a bit further. We identified this as the most important assumption to be tested. basically, people weren't going to trust business owners, and they weren't going to trust the government, but would understand the need to be contactable when things got real. Basically, when things affected them. Right? The assumption that many of the population weren't going to trust the government with their movement data seemed pretty safe as we looked overseas. So both the public and tech giants were not impressed with government-led contact tracing efforts. From what we read in Europe, they put personal privacy to one side and just gone for it, right? And so Google and Apple effectively said no to this. And we could spend the rest of the night talking about whether they've got the right to say no to governments, but we that people would be reluctant to trust small businesses with their data seemed like a safe bet too. And later it turned out this was a fear that was quite well founded. We'll help write this basically on some levels. So day 5, we decided to focus on a solution at the extreme end of the privacy spectrum, well away of solutions that stored personal data centrally, and well away from Bluetooth solutions that seemed very unlikely at the time. We had a storyboard by the end of day Friday, and after attempts to contact the Ministry of Health all week, we were suddenly asked to share it with them on Saturday morning. So this is the actual storyboard we sent them. It was a PDF generated from a Google presentation with the sketches we drawn on paper. It had 11 steps. This probably seems really familiar, but this was, this was new thinking. Step 1, the business owner registers and prints a QR code. They stick it to the shop window. We actually made this process so simple, businesses were able to do this in less than 5 minutes, which is a massive factor in adoption. Customers get the app. They check in. Again, all seems very familiar, right? Of course they do. The person at the counter confirms they've scanned in before serving them. That was a bit soft when it came out. They get the coffee. They scan as they leave. Well, that didn't make them into any code anytime. The venue is informed. Saying, oh my God, there's been something that's gone down at your place. The event is logged on the server. Server broadcasts the event. And it's this step, crucially, that avoids any information about the user being shared. Right? We don't care who you are. People who were exposed are informed, so they know actually something's gone down. And step 11, the customer can choose to contact the MOH, identify themselves when it most matters, right? So it's a storyboard with the Ministry of Health. So we sent them the storyboard presentation, and they respond the same day. It's on a Saturday. They say they plan to release a Ministry of Health app on Monday, the 20th of April.
Racing this time. Racing with it.
Well, that's a bit of a body blow. We're all excited, but maybe it's all under control. But then they call back on Sunday, and this call is a bit more positive and encouraging. And importantly, having developed a good spidey sense for government progress from the Service Innovation Lab, I get a strong gut feel they're a little way away. And importantly, I believe the MOH will be too late to meet the lockdown deadline. So maybe there's still room to help. Monday after the weekend, we meet Johnny. We reckon, what the hell, let's do this. So we get a landing page up by midday, Monday morning. You can see here, excuse the shocking screenshot, but we just started by posting the storyboard things to get it up immediately, and step by step replacing them with actual illustrations. We really just went super lean on this, right? How fast can we get it up? We used unbounce for the landing page, so we just like spin it up straight away. We try and we structure it so that you're eligible for early bird pricing if you get in soon, right? And all hell breaks loose. We've got immediate sign-ups, expressions of interest only, but we push on AdWords a little bit, and we iterate on content, and we're just getting massive interest. So there's something here. There's something. So it's Wednesday. The Ministry of Health app was due 2 days ago. No sign of it. We name our app after crowdsourcing it around the room, or actually by our spreadsheets in the office. Our hospitality contacts are like encouraging us. We've got hundreds of expressions of interest. People are prepared to pay for a solution. And we established this guiding principle just to keep things under control, which proves really important later on. If we're not helping at any point, we're causing confusion. If we're not adding to the cause, we'll get out. So we use that as a guiding principle throughout the whole thing. Having come from the Innovation Lab, I see a chance to tell a great private-public partnership story. The Service Innovation Lab had been rudely shut down, and it was at this point, it was in the last months of wind down. And there was a message I still wanted to broadcast, however I possibly could. So I contacted somebody I knew from the lab and asked them, could we tell a story about the lab engineering a public-private partnership story and coming to the rescue with a contact tracing solution? That seemed like a really good story to tell. But it's bad timing. The lab is still being shut down, and nobody left in the lab leadership has got any guts to try something like this when they're being asked to quietly shut the lab down. But I do get some great advice from somebody within the lab. And about how to integrate with the Ministry of Health. Basically, don't try to do API integration, just use email, based on their previous experience. That site is a great resource, by the way. We published it in a way they couldn't shut it down. So now we've got a mission. Help contain code, yes, absolutely. Help hospo, protect personal privacy, and tell a great public-private partnership story. So we write a blog post about our motivations, creating Rippl. Bear in mind, we actually haven't got an app in the stores or a sign-up process. All we've got is a storyboard at this point, but let's just go anyway. So this is the post on our website about Rippl, and importantly, it pushes this message, which is it's about enabling an ecosystem and allowing people to contribute and the government to focus on the platform, and away we go. And we get great feedback. We get back in front of the Ministry of Health and we push the advantages of public-private partnership. And I tap my connections at WorkSafe, and they're keen to help with Rippl. They really see the value of it, they see the approach they support. We send the Ministry of Health a presentation where we push for an ecosystem that can support many complementary solutions and avoid chaos by defining the rules. Define the rules. We reference the government's own digital strategy, and that strategy that speaks to exactly what we're suggesting. It focuses on building platforms, attempting to work with others, not trying to do it for yourself. And in case you're not aware, this strategy is good reading. We also make some pragmatic suggestions about how to get a platform running now and then improve it later, based on the suggestions we got from people in the lab. Now, next week, ideal. Basically, manual integration, people to people, that's what it takes, and then we'll move on from there. There is serious pressure on now. Ministry of Health are considering every option. People think level 2 is coming next week. The Ministry of Health contact us the very next day, and they request options for white labeling Rippl, or maybe even purchasing it. Clearly they're looking at every single option to try and hit this deadline. But instead of a white label approach, where Ministry of Health would use Rippl, we respond to the request with a recommendation. We discourage the purchase of Rippl and push again the importance of focusing on a platform to support multiple solutions. We stress that having solutions that aren't seen as government solutions is likely to be super important for uptake by many people. We don't get any response from the Ministry of Health, and we didn't get a response until many, many months later. And a few things I would do. And the next day, Wellington City Council called me. Very smart guy, Wellington City Council, and he asked a series of questions about Rippl. He says they've done a lot of research into options, and they'd like to pay for Rippl on behalf of all businesses in Wellington. Sorry? Every business in Wellington? Yes, every business in Wellington now. They praise the privacy by design approach and say it stands out from the crowd. Importantly, they also put us in touch with frontline contact tracers. So this is the many streams of government, and we're able to interview them and validate our thinking about how things will really work. How does this really work? How do the events get really sent out? How do you process points of interest? All that sort of stuff. But Wellington City Council need this solution live on Saturday. and we haven't finished it yet. So we submit it to the stores and we get rejected. At this point, I'm just muttering under my breath. I'm so excited. Stress levels are high. There are tight controls on contact tracing apps, and apps claiming to be contact tracing apps. You can imagine why. There's a lot of people taking advantage of the situation. Yeah, did I mention we were frequently outside our comfort zone on this chair? We asked Ministry of Health for help. We've been keeping them informed as to our process and progress. Surely they can see that it's worth supporting us. The answer is a flat no. So it's a pretty gloomy start to the day. We spent Thursday night getting the sign-in process sorted, wiring up the payment gateway, and then we spot a way forward. Maybe we can just talk about chickens and a diary. We remove all COVID-19 references from the app, boom, and we're live. And of course, it's a Friday afternoon. Always go live on a Friday afternoon. Any venue, any event, not just businesses, which was a major limitation of the Ministry of Health app later, can get a QR poster in less than 5 minutes. The app is in both stores, and hospitality businesses can use it to scan a test code on the website, so they can see it works from day one. So we're live. Job done, right? Things just got started, and they got pretty tense. Over the weekend, we get reports of businesses who have already deployed the codes well ahead of level 2. It is a super thrilling thing to see something you just press digitally go on be deployed at scale and have these kind of physical representations all around the city. The simplicity of the sign-up process was really appreciated. I visited C2 in Dairy, I remember, and I got them fully set up in the time it took me to make my toasted sandwich. It just was super easy. Our first posters stated that venue owners would not serve customers unless they'd scanned it. Should post their things good. Anyway, pressure from retailers and Wellington City Council meant me to remove that message, and to soften it. I still think it was the right thing to do. On Monday morning, we made noise about it. We're up, we're ready. Let's do it from level 2. And on Tuesday, Wellington City Council makes some noise about it. Behind the scenes, we've hacked together a way to batch create hundreds of QR codes for Wellington City Council venues. It's a key feature we hadn't anticipated, given that we were going to go business by business, and now we need like every library. We were contacted by public transport, they needed every train. Just like, whoa, what have we started? What are we doing? We also implemented postcode-based rules so businesses within Wellington could register for free. Made sense, right? And get Wellington City Council branded posters. So day by day, we're just like divvying stuff. On Monday, Jacinda Ardern announces level 2 will be on Thursday. We're just in time, but there's no sign of the official app. We get back in touch with Ministry of Health, but they don't want to talk to us. They're busy. Before we've even managed to talk to the Dunedin City Council, we're told about an Otago Daily Times article. that states that Dunedin City Council will roll out Rippl to all of Dunedin. The meeting was booked for the following morning about what they'll pay for the app, which is kind of nice, isn't it? In other circumstances, you might make more of that. Then we hear via a very reliable channel, the PM has been using Rippl, which was awfully satisfying. Both at Olive and at the Chocolate Fish Cafe, which I validated later. Went to the Chocolate Fish Cafe and they said, everybody loves this thing. They can't work the other one, but they love this one. The National Library and other government venues are adopting Rippl too. And the security team at DIA have some questions for me. And I've been in service innovation in DIA, and I know that the security team and the enterprise architects at DIA are to be feared. But the meeting is over, like literally within 15 minutes, because they realized we capture no personal data at all. There's nothing to protect. They just said, well, this meeting's over. Then the articles, there's a whole bunch of articles come out, basically, that describe progress in the national contact tracing solution as glacial. And they highlight the threat to personal privacy with the array of solutions that have emerged that harvest personal details. I don't really remember back then, but there were a lot of apps in the space. Most of them were web-based and required you to share your personal details. So while it's satisfying to see what we predicted come true, we are feeling for the Ministry of Health crew because the levels of pressure and on their vendors were just insane. So we're super glad that we're not part of that machinery at this point. We also benefit from really big influencers promoting Rippl. So Amanda Palmer visited, spoke to various people, realized the cool app was Rippl. And so 1 million work followers helped us get the word out about Rippl, and then we moved really quick to make sure actually Amanda could get it and use it. So we're off to a good start, and we're particularly proud of beating Zoom as the most downloaded app in both stores during lockdown. This is a crazy ride. But also what had happened is practically overnight we were a product company with lots of business customers and thousands of users. And I totally underestimated the mindset change in a services company with like a handful of clients. People are intending to treat each individual user as a key client. And it just doesn't scale. I'm not quite sure where I click. I'm just on the phone and somebody doesn't quite know where to click on that. You what? And we quickly wired up a chatbot, which was a huge help. But actually, we only survived because Johnny and Pospos chipped in with their customer support team and said, actually, we'll take the calls. In fact, we won't take the calls. we'll deal with it as you do in a product company. Wednesday, the 20th of May, New Zealand COVID. Tracer comes out. The remote app is out. And the 21st of May, the data standard that we've been pleading for months, well, for a month, 3 weeks, is published. Does anybody see it? It's a bit strange, interesting timing. Anyway, so now the app has arrived. Is it all over? There are 2 apps. The Privacy Commissioner publishes a report that highlights major issues with many of the other solutions in market, and most other solutions choose to exit at this point. Some people are actually asking, well, what does this mean for Rippl? But even with the MOH app out, so Ashley says he still uses Rippl. So it must be okay, right? And to be honest, I don't think he expected a question about whether people could continue to use Rippl. It caused a lot of waves. But he checked in using Rippl downstairs in the cafe, I think, in the MOH building. So he was quite a little unaware. And it seems Rippl is much easier to use. And we certainly have a really vocal army of loyal followers. The MOH app requires people to log in and supply all sorts of information that's unnecessary. And it's causing a real problem. It caused problems when you initially registered, and it later caused problems when you wanted to log in again, or needed to log in again. And it turns out that starting up your business for the MOH solution was a real challenge for many, and actually impossible if you weren't a business. So if you had an event or a wedding or anything like this, which wasn't business-based, you couldn't produce a code. Applied to lots of people. Rippl also works on more phones of less privileged people, phones more likely to belong to essential workers. Again, this sort of wave of support kept growing as we stayed in market. We also have a growing body of evidence that less mainstream users trust Rippl, but they don't trust what they termed as the government app. There are stories from overseas that support this, like this one from Korea, where the gay community are a bit unnerved about attempts to contact them because they gave them information and thus associate them with gay clubs. We have a little look at our records and we realise we've got a number of brothels registered as cafes. But of course, it turns out that people in Australia and Singapore were right not to trust their governments. We're fortunate here, we don't have this problem. But actually the data that people provided on particular terms was misused. So we kept on. We started to get a bit cheeky, to be honest. We announced we'd support the COVID tracer codes, despite strongly believing we had a superior QR format. Our QR code format was simpler and therefore scanned easier. But we kind of agreed with MOH would support their codes, so we did it. We made a real point with the fact that we could already send alerts. And New Zealand COVID Tracer at this point was just a simple diary and was missing this crucial feature. We kept moving fast. 5 days after the MOH app came out, we had that dual support in place. And throughout this period, it was pretty clear that people understood and appreciated what we were doing. If nothing else, we were lifting the standard, saying, actually, we can do better. We continue to make UX tweaks based on feedback we received. Most of our feedback was via Twitter. We have a lot of feedback on Twitter. So these are sort of minor tweaks as people got their head around how long you were at a location and so on. And we used a big soapbox we'd suddenly had to make some noise about things that really mattered to us. Supporting Te Reo Māori was one of those things, especially as Māori had been identified as particularly vulnerable to COVID. And the efforts we were making were well received. Really supportive feedback. It kept rolling in from people we respected, people we admired. And on a couple of occasions, one of us went a bit far and got a formal warning from our boss. We run a lot of large clients on AWS. We applied for and won the Privacy Commissioner's Privacy Trust Award, the 4th ever winner of this award. This was pretty special. Actually enabled us to go offshore with the Rippl idea later as well. The drive to launch was replaced with the need to define ongoing success and appropriate investment. Essentially, I was running a product and a services company, and I was fighting for time for people to spend on the product. This was a product that was unlikely to make any money, but was obviously a good cause. And so there was a lot of tense conversations about how much is appropriate to spend on this. So again, these are the raw documents. How are we going to measure success? So there was a big emphasis put on good publicity, and we smashed out even our most ambitious targets. We were publishing content around it. Making the 6 o'clock news was described as the holy grail, and we achieved that multiple times. Being stopped on the street when you're wearing a paper kite t-shirt by Rippl fans never gets old. And it was literally happening. You would walk out to get lunch and goes, "You do Rippl." I'm like, This is a dangerous situation, are we okay? We decided to make Rippl free for many and soon free for anyone. But although we made Rippl free locally, we did make some good cash offshore, thanks to the endorsement of the PSC Commissioner. Capita, who I haven't heard of, quite big in the UK. They made a comment at one point that they have a small team of 1,000 developers. You look them up and they have teams of thousands of developers. They paid us to skin Rippl as Stay Safe Diary and trial it in the UK. They had great contacts and we were really close, I reckon, in having it go really, really big there. The backing we continue to get locally really helped and was heard by Capita. We know firsthand that they saw how popular and how well received it was in New Zealand. We thought Twitter's used it there too. And we worked with Capita on promotional videos for the UK market. I think I'm going to play this. It's quite funny. Oh, can I play it? The accent is lyrics.
Lockdown is easing in the UK, but there is a problem. Venues can't collect personal details for the test and trace scheme and comply with GDPR privacy rules at the same time. People like me want to go out, but we don't want to put our details on an open pad of paper for all the world to see, or into apps we can't trust. Information is not being collected and trust in the test and trace system is sliding. Stay Safe Diary, based on the Privacy Trustmark award-winning Rippl app from New Zealand, enables contactless check-in to venues without ever collecting personal details. The Stay Safe Diary mark lets people know that their data is safe and that they can trust the venue. Simply download the app, scan the QR code at participating venues, and enjoy your visit. We never collect your details.
Stop. All right. Yeah.
Computer's work too hard. Give it a moment.
Oh,
Yeah. Has it just died completely?
charge your drinks, people.
Has anyone got any questions for Rob on the?
Why Rippl? What's in that name?
Why the name? Yeah. I don't know. I think, like I said, it was crowdsourced. So from everybody, but I think it was the concept of the spread and stopping the spread. But there wasn't a lot to it. There's a whole bunch of interesting logo designs again produced within a few hours, right? So it was driven by pace. I mean, something you got to remove the vowels and then we're all right. So.
Is the voice in that, is that a real voice or is it a?
I know, it makes you wonder, right? Yeah.
Now we know it would probably be an AI voice, but.
There was a lot of, we're working with this very large company, and a lot of what they did was try and avoid their teams getting involved at all, because they knew that being the size of them, if they were involved, everything would slow down. And I said, okay, you've got to have this meeting with the brand and design people, but ignore everything they say. And as soon as they've gone, you can continue with your stuff. Okay? So that team of 1,000 developers, yeah, don't worry about them. We'll just launch Rippl as it is, just spin off the code base. We're going live now. So it was quite a ride.
If you can stop sharing and reshare if that helps.
So these machines somehow go down to minimal and you can make up. So I think we'll probably be able to use these things.
Little bits and pieces.
Yeah, we think that we things. Just probably not going to probably, you know, shouldn't come with it. Yeah, Johnny.
Apologies, continue over the top. The last few slides there. Okay, so this has been great, but then we actually went too far. We released another substantial improvement to the Rippl QR code format that allowed codes to be scanned outside Rippl. So basically you'd use your camera like you do with most QR codes, right? Scan it, and it would either just scan you in if you had Rippl or ask you to download the app. Seems like a small thing, but the number of people that were confused still about QR codes, right? Because QR codes have been around for a little while, but the adoption was still a challenge. The update was applauded by mobile experts because this is the trend. This is what Google and Apple have been asking you to do: start to use the camera and whatever else. So we think we're on to a winner app, but our timing was off. Multiple codes from the other contact tracing solutions were already causing enough confusion. We referenced our guiding principle about not hindering Rippl orders and decided that Rippl codes had to go. The MRH codes were the ones we needed to support. So we backed it off. It was a painful decision given we thought we had a superior QR code format. It was simpler, it worked outside the app, but it was the right thing to do. We decided to tell everybody to take their Rippl codes down. And the reaction was incredible from well-respected people. Andrew Chen, probably know him, but he'd been the media's contact tracing guru since day one, and I'd been in contact with him a lot. it was nice and important to us to get a hat tip from the chief science advisor. And there was so much more positive feedback from people I know and people I really admire. This one was pretty cool. But it was only the QR codes we retired. Rippl remained the contact app of choice for me. So we kept experimenting and staying in close contact with the Ministry of Health to share what we discovered. We experimented with rewards with a set of Dungeons and Dragons dice at our local bar, Hashigozaki, but it didn't really show enough promise. What we learned actually was the social barrier, particularly for young people, of scanning and being seen to be a goody-goody was the major problem. And people weren't scanning it. The rest of it didn't matter. You could entice them, you could give away beer, you could give away all sorts of stuff. They still wouldn't do it because they were seen as being in their peer group. Goody-goody. We did automatic check-in, and actually this worked incredibly well. I don't know whether everybody still has the app on their phone now, but whenever you arrive at paper cart, you're checked in. You don't have to do anything. We found a perfect use for these iBeacon things that everybody's been trying to find use for. When combined with a smart sort of locally deployed algorithm, with a bunch of smarts to make sure you weren't going to be checked in the wrong place. We thrashed it at Biavana, and the Ministry of Health was super interested because it got them a chance to go to Biavana, I think, but also they got the chance to try out the chicken. It's still running smoothly at Paper Card. I'm pretty sure it's still running down the road at Hachigozaki and at People's Coffee, but it never went any bigger. One of some cool friends though, in terms of people on their watches showing their chickens. Finally, in November, we were declared as a Ministry of Health integration partner. We'd made it. And this, for me, is what we were aiming for with the public-private partnership thing. It was a recognised partnership. It was a great success story that they were helping us tell. I joked a bit that it felt like a shotgun wedding. And it did feel hard. But this was just a joke. Disappointingly, there was a long period where journalists were hounding me for names from the Ministry of Health in a quest to blame someone for the delays. Super disappointing, right? The truth is that there are a set of hurdles for the Ministry of Health trying to navigate a system that's just not set up for rapid response, right? And if you try and blame somebody, you just make the risk-averse culture worse, right? The fact that they need to fire somebody when something goes wrong, it's a real messy system. It's the system and the strategy that must change, right? Let's keep away from blaming individuals. There's something about a kapai from somebody you really respect that makes the whole journey worthwhile, and boy, it was hard. It felt insanely hard at times, but we actually achieved everything we set out to do. And we got to tell the great public-private partnership story. And I think huge credit for those inside the walls at NLH for building the platform, showing it could be done. And I know a little bit and more since about what was happening at Ministry of Health, and they were working damn hard. Late nights, weekends, under insane pressure, right? And the ministry telling the public-private partnership story itself was just so good to see. They started highlighting the efforts we were made to experiment. And so it was clear we were working together, we were informing each other as we're going, it was working as it was supposed to work. And there's plenty of evidence following that and knowing the guys that are working really hard in that space now, that this platform thinking is continuing, it's continuing to really be championed. So I'm just going to flip through a couple of gratitudes to finish off. I mentioned I believe in generosity, so do these guys. Postboss and Johnny, I mentioned him. And I mentioned we're a services business. We had bills to pay at one critical stage. I didn't have any devs. And Akama donated developer time. And we kept going. Actually, I'm going to share site up as well. Share site also gave us a shit hot here. Catalyst gave us free cloud hosting for many months. Kaitiana gave us guidance on data as panga and connected us with translators, non-translators. Charlotte, many of you will know Charlotte Hinton, responded to my plea for agile wrangling and arrived and dug me out of the ship. ZX Security answered some of my gnarly questions. Great people there. Wellington City Council worked well into the night with us on numerous nights ahead of those lockdown lifting. And Dan Hope, John Harries, and Neil McLeod, in particular, Ministry of Health, are just superheroes. These two get special mention. There was a particular tense incident when Ministry of Health had sent out alerts to NZ COVID tracer, and they hadn't informed Rippl. Things got pretty heated and very public because this was serious shit. Both of these guys made time for me. It was a Sunday night. First thing Monday morning, they both somehow carved out a couple of hours for counselling and provide some superb advice. These guys are amazing. And I was going to finish with this slide. And I initially presented it because it was a thing. Thanks very much.
We've got time for a few questions if you'd like. Anyone's got any burning questions? That was an amazing story, boy. I didn't know all of that. That was incredible effort. Well done.
How much of what you learned becoming a product company has kind of fed forward into your agency work?
Yeah, I think it was a proof point for many people here that and a chance to show that this stuff that was theory actually could work. Right? It's a bit of a dream run, right? You don't get that kind of, the kind of setup type of thing. We all know that. Products a bit harder than that normally. But it was great to have a chance to demonstrate. That's what I was talking about when I talked about these processes. That's what I think canvas looks like. That's why you produce one and go back to it and keep and so on and so on. Right? So that was really useful. We've gone on to grow a product team to talk about discovery rather than separate UX and product design. They've got it since. We do a lot of product coaching. That's part of what we do now. And some of it, was visibility to attract great people in that space, I think. For a long period of time, we would recruit, and the first thing people would say would be, "Are you the guys at Rippl?" So in the tech community and the digital sort of leadership space in New Zealand, there was nobody I felt that didn't know that we'd done that. It was incredible. It was really incredible in terms of, and people that got it, that got why we'd done it, and the privacy impact of that, and the way we played clean with the Ministry of Health, and the fact that we hadn't gone off and tried to screw people for money or something like that. So, as a business contribution, it was huge in terms of just getting the name out there.
A question about the initial approach that you were taking, but I want to share a little bit of my overseas experience, because I've had the unfortunate experience of being in Germany for the first part of the pandemic and watching the shit show unfold, but that was the contact tracing app there. Because the government contracted two companies who were building the contact tracing app that are well known for their agility and customer centricity, which is SAP and Telecom. And they gave them 80 million euros, I think, for building this app. And the approach they took was clearly very tech push. So with your approach, from the storyboard that you showed, it looked like that was a very UX-driven approach, but then you also mentioned privacy by design. So what was really guiding your approach to how this app was built and what it should look like?
Yeah, I think, I talked to it in terms of the sort of mission sort of statements, I suppose, loosely speaking.
Yeah.
But definitely starting from that problem was that people weren't going to trust. It's the easiest way to get people to trust you, or get them to give up the minimum possible stuff so they don't have to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that totally drove the design straight away. How simple can we keep it? How little can we know about anybody? How late can we leave any need to identify yourself? And then there was very little tech. Actually, you keep it that simple. There was nothing that was complicated in the tech. The most complicated bit was the beacon algorithm later on, right? And then it's into it. But really, people are like, is this, PIA, it's explaining it as an and as another done. That's all it does. So, well, okay. So I think just the simplicity and starting with those principles is really important.
And did you lead with that when you marketed it and tried to get people to use it? You led with that security message first, right?
Yeah. The fact that absolutely you don't need to trust us. Because I mean, who were we? That was the other thing. It's like some unknown agency that wants to do national contact tracing. We had to lead with, we could be anybody, doesn't matter.
Yeah, like most people in New Zealand have not heard of Papercode.
No,
like, yeah, we have because we're in the industry. But
no, because who the hell is these people that produce the app that they think they're going to take on the nation with? And so Wellington City Council go, every business. And then Dunedin go, yes, everybody in Dunedin too. Just like, whoa. And it's because they've done the review and they realised it didn't matter who we were. We didn't actually have any data, or our security practices could be shit. It didn't matter. And so Wellington City did actually commission a whole security and privacy review for us because it was somebody was asking anyway, right? But they'd already gone. They'd already done it. They're already committed because intelligent people at Wellington City Council got it. So they don't even need that report. So again, it's just super simple. Right? Do not collect shit you don't need. That's pretty basic.
I guess on a similar vein, I'm thinking about like the mushroom apocalypse, like the famous shows and everything, and people's mistrust of government. I guess your profile of the app and people's view of the government app. Do you think, knock on wood, if there's a situation in the future, like you could relaunch, rebrand, get out in front again, or do you think the government branded app would get out before, I guess?
Now, we're now, Ministry of Health ended up at the end of that saga paying us for our server-side stuff that listens to their APIs, right, for the event stuff. So and because they actually had time probably to process our message at the time, there's all sorts of reasons why they got overwhelmed, right? But then they realized actually there's a huge segment of society who are never going to use something that's a government app, right, for whatever reason. And so fundamentally for that reason, they needed us to market. And so they paid to, and then Canada stopped sponsoring the servers. Ministry of Health paid for the servers, and we've decommissioned the listening, but we can turn that back on, and the Ministry of Health said, just please be ready to turn that back on. Without being scaring anybody, because there'll be something else, right? And at the moment, this is the best approach we've found to do contact tracing and so on. Right? Might be a different virus, might be another variation of the current one. It's not over.
Because your position is a known quantity in the market where there's been an erosion of trust in government and government supplied options. Being able to, I guess, leverage that and kind of, again, get out the front of that visibility in the market.
But also there were, the building of the platform enabled other like scanning or security type solutions to wire up as well, right? Because once you publish the API, there can be all sorts of data about movements and so on, right? So actually we're in a better place now because more people can think creatively about how we might do it differently next time, right? That's kind of the drive, is that don't let it just be one or two vendors, don't let it be the vendors you selected, establish the rules, publish the APIs, allow everybody to think about it, and do it in a way that the APIs define the rules. Right? So privacy rules are defined in the API specs in effect, right? And so then you've got this ecosystem, right? The buzzword.
Thanks, Rob. That's an awesome story. I'm keen to talk about goody goodies, actually. I was always really fascinated by the sort of user behavior, I guess, around scanning, or the reluctance that some people had to scan, just despite it being obviously the right thing to do. So you mentioned goody goodies and like a younger audience, I guess, having perceptions of being not cool. Do you have any other anecdotes or insights into user behaviors from diving into your data?
Yeah, there was a lot of because also what we did is not provide. Emotion would track a lot of data, right? Because it was able to, and because they wired it up to do it, and we were again at the other end of the spectrum. So people would say, well, how many people are scanning in? And we'd say, well, we don't know. They'd say, well, where are they scanning in? No, we don't know. It's the point, you're getting it? Yeah, it's like, but that provided a gap. So we had to go do observations, right, to see actually what are we actually seeing out there, and check that people are, is the app actually working at scale, right, and rely on feedback to say, actually, is this working, to testing it, whatever else, right. So a lot of our observations were what informed that, right, so we'd see, and then Ministry of Health did some formal studies. I can't remember the group that called me, but I got quizzed a number of times by people who'd been commissioned by Ministry of Health about what we'd seen, and then they would share what they saw. So yeah, nothing more in terms of that sort of detail around the goody-goody but it was fascinating, and that's really what prompted the beacon stuff, right? Because people wanted to, right? It was found to cover that people wanted to scan. They realised actually felt exposed is what we found when they didn't scan. But again, the peer pressure and the social thing overrode even basic health concerns and serious sickness stuff. It's such a powerful thing, right? Yeah. So giving them the ability to check in with keeping their phone in their pocket was a big thing. Yeah. But yeah, just an amazing force, peer pressure and being cool, I guess.
So Rob, across like all the different kind of product management functions, from falling in love with the problem, discovery, UX, compliance, go to market, sign up, onboarding, like the whole thing. Did this inform you that you'd double down more in one area and you'd worry less about another? I mean, because often they come across as being all important, and we try and do all the things, but nothing beats a war story. Sorry, that makes you go, well, actually, I'll do half of that and twice as much of that. Was there any kind of feedback for you in that way?
I haven't reflected on it. It was because the core of the development was 3 weeks. It was driven by 1 week. Really. Test that, learn that. Yes, I think that's going to fly. Let's move. I think we learned a lot. It's been 3 years, but when we had the unbounced landing page, because we could A/B test and all that stuff that you get from that platform to say, actually, what's the messaging, what's converting, actually, where are people getting stuck in the process? So we did a bunch of that as we went, but fundamentally, it was the underlying, we were solving a real problem at Julia, right? And so we could get things wrong. It certainly wasn't a perfect sign-up process, but it was infinitely better than nothing, and certainly better than what the government put out at that time. So minor adjustments weren't really necessary in that time frame. It was more in market or not.
Yeah.
Big macro change.
Do you think we overthink our products? Like, I mean, the experience of just getting out there and doing it, did that make? Would you think less and act more, or?
I just think that in this case, it's such a special case.
Right.
Right. That it's hard to relate to another product journey. Right. Where minor adjustments are, big products, millions of dollars worth. Right. It's not just a case with a very massive problem to solve. So we have it easier.
Has the experience of building this within a service company and then the intervening 3 years prompted a bit of attention about why you're not a product company?
Yeah.
And what do you want to see in the next 3 years?
It's going to be one of these awesome ones.
Shall I stop the live stream now?
Is anyone else working at that?
Oh yeah. That's a great combo.
I've worked with Abletech a lot over the years, and they run a really successful model where they do sort of browse dev and services, and they do product as well. And the product smooths out their ups and downs of services. They do address finding, you guys don't know, other products and products. And yeah, there's definitely appeal, right, for a services company to have somebody that takes you through the ups and downs. So definitely. But I think what was interesting is the competition and the stress that put people under. It was certainly Rob and Will out of control, driving this bus for a while. And we were lucky because we had a bit of a dip, right? Because that was big clients were kind of going, hang on, can we just think before we So I had some space, right? So I get hold of some people, but that dried up pretty quick. So we never went through the formal thinking about, oh, are we now going to be a product company? It was just like, bang, overnight. This is what product looks like. It can be all consuming. How the hell are you going to keep your clients running at the same time? So we kind of retreated back from there to say, actually, no, we're just going to go back to B. We've got some really good clients. We love the kind of work we're doing. The way we do client engagement is much more considered now, I think. We talk about sustainable products, and we want to work with people that produce sustainable products, and when we engage, we don't just deliver something and let it drop. We want to engage and work out how is this going to be a long-term going concern. So all sorts of spin-offs from that kind of product think. But it hasn't we haven't made a step to say, hey, we want to find a product. To figure out that.
Deep down in your gut, do you think that you should have done that?
Because
you have a great platform for checking in.
Oh,
you have
yeah. And in fact, the whole loyalty space where actually you turn the whole model around, where I don't have to give you anything and I can get loyalty benefit. Absolutely, give me. And Liam actually was all over me because he came from wherever he comes from with just this bored energy to say, if you're not going to do something with it, I will. And so we spent numerous hours over there just and we went down to Hashigazaki and we did customer things. So we explored it a bit. In payment, Trade Me, for example, will over at one point say actually you have an app that people are using at point of sale, in effect, and it's out and it's active and it's holy shit, that's what we needed, for our various payment solutions. Let's do this. And I was saying, yeah, okay, let's do this. But they couldn't move fast enough either.
New Zealand doesn't do QR payments, and all of Asia does.
Blows my mind, right? But yeah, so there's plenty of opportunity. I think fundamentally we're a bit exhausted. If we hadn't been quite so exhausted, we probably would have run with it. So yeah, them coming at the end of it and just sort of going, get up again. I was like, dude, you have any idea what we just did?
Hey Rob, I'm gonna call it quits. We can keep talking. I'm gonna close the stream now. I've got 4 people hanging on, 3 people hanging on for dear life. Got every word. Nice. But I just want to thank you again for a really compelling story, and well done.